Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the real CSI, or what really happens. So you should follow along, fill in your notes as we go. This set of notes is not very long at all, although there is a lot that we cover in this that you don't actually have to write down. So you got that as well. So when we're talking about crime scene investigation, there are two things that you want to look at. You want to look at observations and perceptions. Observation is what a person actually perceives using his or her senses. So it's what you see, what you hear, in some cases, what you can smell or touch. Perception is how you individually interpret what you have seen from your senses. Sometimes what you perceive is not actually correct. So you hear something, you smell something, and you decide or perceive that it is one thing when it's actually another. So sometimes your brain will make this jump. You smell an apple pie and you just assume that you're at grandma's house. That's not a very good one for me to use as an example, but it's the only one I can think of this early in the morning. So here for our first perception activity, I want you to look at the screen and see if you can read what is written there. This will be easier for some people than for others, and if you're dyslexic, it might be really difficult. So hopefully you were able to read at least part of this paragraph. It says, I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. Using the incredible power of the human mind, according to research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing, huh? Yeah, and I always thought sleeping was important. See, see if your friends can read this too. So there you go. All right, so perception activity number 2. I'm going to put something up on the screen. You're going to give me the color of the words. So you're not reading what the word says. You're telling me what color the words are. So for example, if the word blue is printed, sorry, I had to sneeze. So if the word blue is printed in red, so the letters are the color red, then you're going to say red. And you want to try to do this as fast as you can. All right? Are you ready? Here we go. All right. So that activity kind of shows you that your mind wants to read the word, not say the color. So in a lot of cases, it's much harder to read what it's saying instead of saying, like, your mind wants you to say the word blue because it spells blue instead of saying the word red because it's in the color red. All right, so now we're going to talk about the difference between observation and perception. So if you're looking at this right here, this picture, think in your mind, so you can say it out loud, nobody's there. What can you observe? So what do you see? So when we're talking about observations, you're just telling plainly what you see, not making any inferences or saying what you think it might be. But in other words, you're saying there are a lot of trees here. There's leaves on the ground. There's not very many leaves on the trees. Most of the foliage is brown. Very little green. All of those are things that you observe. The sky is kind of blue, looks like kind of blue. I think there's a few clouds. Okay, that's what you observe. Now, perception is, this looks like a path or maybe a dirt road through a very wooded area. It appears to be fall. That's a perception. The reason that I would say it's a perception is because I'm basing that it's fall on the fact that the leaves are on the ground. There's not very many leaves on the trees. There's not much green around. All of that leads me to believe it's fall. So those are things that I perceive. So we're not going to do this part where you work with somebody next to you. But you could do it with someone at home. Basically, you look at each other for 30 seconds. Then the other person closes their eyes and you change something about yourself that's simple to change. And then you see when they open their eyes back up, if they can see the difference in you. So when things are being observed by witnesses, there are a lot of things that can influence what they observe. So those are influenced by their emotional state. So if somebody is scared, highly agitated, their observations are not going to be as good as if they're calm. Whether they were alone or part of a group. People that are alone tend to observe more, take in more details than if they're a group, because there's like this group mentality that everybody's viewing it, so I don't need to be that careful with it. What type and how much activity was going on around them. So if you're at an outdoor concert and there's lots of stuff going on around you, you're not going to be observing as much because your mind is occupied with all this other stuff that's going on around you. But if you were sitting in a park reading a book by yourself and something starts happening, you're going to observe a whole lot more about what's going on. Level of interest. Okay, so if you are not interested at all in what's going on around you, so if you are in the park talking to your significant other and you're having this deep conversation about how much you love each other, or you're breaking up, whatever it is, your level of interest in that other person is much more than anything else that's going on around you. So if somebody's having an argument across the park from you, you're probably not going to pay that much attention to it because you're in this deep conversation with your significant other. Now, if you were just sitting there reading a book and there starts to be this loud argument across the park, your level of interest is going to be higher. If you're under stress, that's going to have some influence on what you perceive. You tend to take in less details when you're more stressed. Then prejudices and personal beliefs. So if you don't like people who wear red hats, or you really hate the group Nirvana, or any kind of thing like that, if you notice those things, you tend to be more observant of them. But you may also not be just a bystanding observer. You may actually say, oh, that person with Nirvana was in the wrong. They shouldn't have been yelling at the other person because you don't like their shirt with Nirvana on it. And then how much time has passed between when the incident occurred and when someone asks you about it. So yesterday morning, you had to go to the cafeteria. You had to pick up your schedule. Okay. Do you remember what the teacher was wearing who handed you your schedule yesterday? Probably not. Probably don't remember what they were wearing. That's because there's been a lapse in time between when you picked up your schedule and now. Also, it probably wasn't important to you what that teacher was wearing. All you cared about was picking up that schedule, going and finding your friends. Eyewitness accounts. So when a crime happens, everybody perceives it differently. They are all observing the same thing, but what they get from that observation is different. So we're going to watch this little video, and we're going to see how much the people observed and how much you can observe.
If you saw a crime or were the victim of one, how well would you remember what you saw?
Eyewitness accounts are crucial in crime fighting, but their reliability is often in question. In fact, the Innocence Project says eyewitness misidentification is the single greatest factor in wrongful convictions.
KXLY4's Tori Bernay joined us now. Tori, you spent some time with investigators to talk about what it takes to be a good witness.
Yeah, investigators say a lot of people either don't react well in those intense situations or they simply don't know what to look for. So they put a group of college students to the test to see what they would remember in an intense situation. If you want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil, you can test out your own witness skills. And David and Robin are not off the hook. I have pens and paper for them too. Let's see how everyone does.
Do our best to contain the area and catch the sky before somebody gets hurt.
In 2003, a serial thief known as the Bandana Bandit tormented the Spokane area,
walked up to the counter, pulled out the gun and stuck it in their face and said, "I'm not messing around. Give me the money."
Investigators had countless people who claimed to witness these crimes. People who said they got a good look at him.
We did have information that an individual we saw him prior to him covering up his face.
But did they? Major Scott Stevens investigated the Bandana Bandit case. He says what people think they see and what actually happened can often be very different.
But a lot of the time, people will run information through their own life experiences and then put a perspective on it that may not be completely reflective of what's going on.
For example, this is a sketch created from witness descriptions of the Bandana Bandit, and this is his mugshot. Take a close look at his facial structures, the shape of his nose, his ears. It's those details that investigators say are the most helpful in IDing a suspect.
See if there's anything that makes them unique. If they have unusual mannerisms or strange or unique speech patterns.
We put a group of college students to the test. Helping us is former Spokane County Sheriff and current EW Criminal Justice Professor John Goldman. Playing the role of our bad guy is EW Police Cadet Cale Hammond. And our victims in this scenario are a group of unsuspecting college students. They will be interviewed by EW Police Detective Quincy Burns. 10 minutes after class starts.
All right, stop. What did you just see? What did the person look like who walked into the room? What did he say? Detectives say one of the best things someone who has just witnessed a crime can do is to take a little bit of time and write down what they saw.
After the students in Professor Goldman's class took a few seconds to calm down, we told them this was just a test, and I had them take some notes of their own.
These are the descriptions the kids in the class gave me. Keep in mind they're juniors and seniors, majoring in criminal science and criminal justice. Their entire focus was at the front of the class, and even they didn't get it all right.
Maybe 5'8". He looked like he was about like 6'3".
Approximately 6 feet tall.
Kill is 5'10", and in all fairness, height is difficult to judge. Let's see how they did on what he was wearing.
He had, I believe, black sweatpants and a black sweatshirt with a white t-shirt underneath.
I believe the man was wearing a black cap, a black coat, a sweater, and jeans.
He was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt and his Under Armour brand. I couldn't see from the way he was standing if it was or not. He had a black wool cap on with the Eagles logo on it, blue jeans, and dark shoes.
Skylar hit the nail on the head. Kel had on a black hooded sweatshirt, black hat with the Eagles logo, and jeans. But what most of them missed was a crucial piece of information given up, not in what Kel looked like, but in what he said.
Came in here very distraught, mentioned that he was going to fail the class.
He said, "You'll be sorry, I will find you."
He seemed very upset about a grade that Goldman had given him.
All that is true, but it's this statement that could have really helped Detective Burns.
He made reference that he just come from the professor's secretary. So now that narrows things down to our scope of our search. If we don't take him outside on the campus, immediately we can go back and talk to that secretary.
Overall, Detective Burns said this class did a good job, and if this were a real crime, they would have had a good place to start. But as the old saying goes, the devil is in the details.
Pay attention to things that are unique to that suspect. That they just can't disregard, shed, or change easily.
Hair color, length, and clothing can all be changed, but tattoos, scars, facial structure, even things like a lip, accents, or posture are more permanent. In our fake situation, it was something small Kale mentioned that would have most likely helped detectives find him. In the case of the Bandana Bandit, it was surveillance video taken from a string of robberies in Oregon that led to his arrest in Spokane County. Detectives gathered all their witness statements and found similarities that matched with robberies in Oregon.
It does make a detective's job somewhat of a challenge, filtering through all that information and trying to determine what's accurate and what's not.
All right, I know that was quick, and I kind of put you guys on the spot, but you think you're pretty good witnesses?
Generally, I would have got the cap, wearing dark sweatshirt at some time. I thought maybe throwing the paper out in which direction he went. But
Right.
That was hard. That was really tricky. And it went really quick. I know we had a little bit better of a chance because we kept seeing it replay. Right. So I feel like the students probably, that was a whole different situation.
And if you witness a crime, it's going to go quick, and your adrenaline's going to kick in. If you're with your family, those survival instincts are going to kick in, and it's going to key in really on those details. But detectives say, it's really not the clothing that is going to help them catch this person. It's those little things, the tattoos, the lips, the posture, accents that people kind of don't have a tendency to pay attention to.
scar on the face, moving into posture.
I missed the whole part of the secretary. So I think I said something, you regret this. I missed that other part. So interesting. Don't feel bad. They all were in the classroom, and most of them missed it too. Great story though. Really good thinking. Thanks, story.
All right, so there we go. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the Innocence Project. It was founded in 1992. The lawyers who started it, one was O.J. Simpson's lawyer, and they basically wanted to find a way to help people who had been wrongly convicted, usually by faulty witness testimony. So what the Innocence Project has found is that up to 87% of the wrongful convictions that they've found were based on faulty eyewitness identifications. So the way the Innocence Project works is that if there was untested DNA evidence in the case, they will get it tested and attempt to prove that the person who was convicted was wrongly convicted and use the DNA to help overturn their conviction. We'll be looking into the Innocence Project a little bit more in the next couple weeks. All right, the CSI effect, what this is the belief that people have when they go into a courtroom, whether it's jurors or even sometimes the judge himself, that they believe they know more about the criminal justice system and how crime scene investigation works because they've seen TV shows and movies about it. And so they expect more forensic evidence to be used in the cases that they may be a juror on. And they overly expect there to be forensic evidence where there might not be any. So there have been jurors who wanted to know why forensic teams didn't attempt to collect DNA off of grass where a suspect ran, or why wasn't there DNA at a burglary. Again, DNA can only be left behind if a person leaves behind some kind of bodily fluid normally. So if they just happen to break into a house and they don't cut themselves and they don't sweat a whole lot, you're probably not going to find DNA there. So again, we'll talk more about the CSI effect in class. All right, so that is the end of our notes. Please be sure that you have filled in all the blanks. There's a copy of the slides in Google Classroom for you to use. And if you have any questions, be sure that you bring them up when we discuss this in class. Have a wonderful day.